Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your special host, Dr. Lance Pearson with the Kentucky Liberty Caucus and the Louisville Tea Party. Again, I want to promote our mayoral forum. We basically are having the who I consider to be the best candidates to potentially replace Mayor Greenberg in the next session. I think we have 4 or 5 candidates that will be there. It will just basically be an opportunity for you to interact with them, ask a few questions of them, and hear from them what their perspectives are on what's going right and what's going wrong with the city and their ideas for how to fix some of those issues. So that's at Roosters in Middletown on Shelbyville Road. I think the address is 10430 Middletown Road, but it's basically in one of those strip malls by Planet Fitness or one of those workout studios. So we would love to have you there. It is limited. I think there's maybe a 50 or 60 person limit. So if you want to actually get a seat in there, get there early and order your food early and get ready for some local politics talk. All right. I'm joined again by State Representative Steve Doan. We're honored to have him. He has actually, I consider some of these bills like some of the most common sense legislation that would radically change in a positive direction the state. He's actually addressing some fundamental issues. And so one of those bills that I think is a great way to address a fundamental issue is dealing with licensure in the state. So people are generally not aware of it, but almost every sort of business that you want to start in the state, like almost to an absurd extent, requires you to have some sort of certification, that you went to some amount of education about this or that. It's not, oh, I can actually do the work. It's, have I gone through all of these hoops that the state has set up for me to have to go through in order to even get into that business. So especially someone that doesn't have a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. They're coming out of high school. They're ready to work. They're a hard worker. They learn fast. They want to just go and get basically be an apprentice and learn the trade from someone who's been doing it. There usually is not a straightforward path to do that because we have just a plethora of boards. I think we got over 500 boards in the state of Kentucky. That may be an exaggeration, but it might not. It may not. It's absurd how many boards we have in the state. So tell me about this bill. I think the bill number is 458. 458. Yeah. It's a universal licensure bill, and my summary of it, and you can correct me, is it basically says that if you are licensed in another state to perform whatever the job is, and especially if you've been doing that job already, you can come work in the state of Kentucky without having to jump through all these extra hoops. So go ahead and talk about that bill and just explain the intricacies and what the barrier is to this.
No, that's a great summary of the bill. And it's universal. It's every occupation.
Yeah.
You'll see every year or so we chip away at this. We'll do it for cosmetologist or we'll do it for whatever little entity. But this goes broad-based. It looks at every single occupation. We talked about healthcare. One of the folks that are most behind this bill is the healthcare industry because you can't get nurses, you can't get doctors. So what this does is it just creates a level playing field. We always talk about Kentucky being the donut hole of states. We look around us and we see everybody around us is doing something, but we just can't seem to get it right. Ohio has implemented this. Virginia has implemented this. Indiana has something similar. Tennessee has this. And so basically our folks can go straight over to there and work almost day one. Under the bill, you would be able to get that license, a thumbs up or a thumbs down within 30 days. Right. Pay I think it's a $100 or a $50 fee to submit your application to work. And boom, you get licensed just like that. So it's when we talk about, you had mentioned income tax earlier in the day. Part of the reason we want to cut our income tax is to attract new industry, new business, new jobs, new people to the state.
Absolutely.
And so if we're going to try to attract new people, we need to make it easy for them to come here and work. My wife was a resident of Ohio when we were dating, and we got married, and I stole her and brought her into Kentucky.
Thank you.
She was a licensed optician, and she came to Kentucky, and we required like 2-3 additional classes. And she said, "Look, I'm making $50,000-$60,000 a year. it's just not worth it to me to go through these extra hoops, and did a total career change. And that always is surprising to me, that somebody's been in a career path or an industry and has a lot of technical expertise and just gives up on it because we put too many barriers to entry in order to get that new job. And so I think it's a common sense bill. We should pass it. We need to do it. A lot of states have. I think 26 states have already passed something like this. Yeah. So it just makes sense.
I know. Famously, South Dakota may have gotten this started. I know Kristi Noem had all those ads. Come and work in South Dakota. Why do we not want Kentucky to be a place where we encourage people to come and work? If you're already performing a task in another state, you're licensed, you've gone through all of their hoops. When they come to the state of Kentucky, what is it about, let's just use cutting hair. What is it about cutting hair that if you're certified in Ohio and you're cutting people's hair fine in Ohio, that you come over the border and you can't cut a mullet in the state of Kentucky now?
Man, you picked a good one. So I filed this bill 4 years in a row. The first year that I filed it, I had the executive director of the Board of Cosmetology come and meet with me in my office. And she made these wild accusations that sex trafficking would increase, that people would die or lose their fingers because, nail technicians didn't have special training or whatever coming from other states. I mean, it was just ridiculous. She's no longer in that position, by the way. She's been since removed. It was one of the great things that, it's one of the only good things that Andy Beshear ever did. But she's gone just because it was that attitude of, we're going to keep people out. We're going to use government to put our thumb on you and prevent you from earning an income. It is ridiculous to me.
Now, and let's be very clear about why a lot of these licenses exist. If you are in a business, let's say I have my own hair cutting salon or whatever, I'm a barber, and I don't want competition. How do I prevent that? I can't keep somebody from opening up a shop down the street, but what I can do is make sure that I talk to that board and make the requirements for new barbers to come in that want to cut hair for $1 cheaper per haircut. Make sure that they can't even get into the business because we set up all these boards and all these restrictions and education, and the amount of education you need to be a cosmetologist or to cut people's hair it's absurd. I mean, we could do a whole show on just that. And so that's what a lot, I won't say every single one of these licensure requirements for our particular state or the restrictions that you're trying to address are like that, but almost all of them, if not all of them, are like that.
We have a lot of occupational licenses that other states don't even have.
Yeah,
I mean, silly things like taxidermy. In Indiana, you don't have to be a licensed taxidermist. Why would we? You're dealing with dead animals to begin with. Why would we really care? But in Kentucky, no, we require that you have some special license. And so a critical part of that bill is if you are from a state where that they don't have a license, but you have at least 1 year of experience working in that industry or working in that field, you can come in and that experience will apply to get your license here in Kentucky.
Okay. Now, let's talk quickly about a bill 526 that relates to the Barr. That's basically the organization that certifies lawyers in the state of Kentucky. So talk about your Barr bill.
So this bill I'd passed it out of the House my first year as a state representative. I call it the crown jewel of right-to-work legislation. Attorneys are the only profession in the state that are required to join an association in order to earn a living. We passed right to work in, I think, 2017, somewhere around there when the Republicans took over the state house. But we didn't do it for lawyers. And so that's what this bill does. It gets back to that issue of occupational licensing. It's a free speech issue, to be quite honest. The Bar Association makes a lot of statements for lawyers that not all of us want them to make. And so why should I have to pay you money to go make statements that are adverse to my interest? So it goes into that licensing, into that occupational licensing issue, and I think we're going to get that through the House and hopefully be successful with it again.
Okay. Let me go ahead and transition into a political issue that occurred. I guess this was at the end of last week also, and that was, and this is to me quite unusual, that a couple of candidates for US Senate in the state of Kentucky, and and I believe it was Andy Barr and then Nate Morris also, decided that they would weigh in on another race that's happening in the state of Kentucky. And in particular, they offered an endorsement against a sitting congressman right now. So I know that you're really close with Representative Thomas Massie. I also am. I consider him a friend. You're probably a much better friend than I am because you live a lot closer to him and you interact with him a lot more. So can you just talk about that? I think basically they decided that they were going to endorse against a sitting congressman, but I think there was a bigger motivation than that. I actually think that Congressman Massie gets along with both of these guys in general as people. But what do you think the motivations were? And we can talk it out.
When it happened, I had a lot of people call me and want comment or ask how I felt about it. And I didn't really have the words to process it. All that I could say is just, it was a disappointment to me. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have somebody come in with that much power and endorse against me, or with that kind of a reach, endorse against me in a race. You're on the ballot for your own Senate seat, for your own representative seat, whatever it is. Let your race be against your opponent. There's no need to gang up on people, and that's kind of how I felt about it. The poor guy's had a tough week, and having the president lean on you like that, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I got to give him all the credit in the world. I mean, he never seems down. I texted him immediately after that happened, and told him that I loved him and that I was supporting him no matter what. I was 100% behind him, and his response was gracious, and he just said, "Look, it ain't about me. They're trying to get a leg up in their race, and I think he's going to be just fine, and he'll work with those guys, whichever one gets in the future."
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an issue with the, and quite likely neither of those people will get in. Who knows? There's a lot of people in that race, and they may not win.
It's a lot.
I do want to say, I think basically, to me, it was an issue of they were trying to court Trump's endorsement, which they think is going to be the decider in this race. I'm not so sure about that, and I'm not sure he's going to endorse. But they basically wanted to cozy up to whatever the messaging is that Trump's got. So they basically threw someone else under the bus to promote their own political career. I don't love that.
All right, I'm your host, Tom Feuds with Kentucky's Voice. If you like those clips and you want to see more, click here. If you want to see the entire program where those clips came from, click here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click subscribe below.